Welcome back to another deep dive. We're looking at a very specific moment in the calendar today.
Oh, absolutely.
It's Monday, March 2nd, 2026, and the grueling, just continent-wide gauntlet that is the national final season for the Eurovision Song Contest has just wrapped up.
Finally. I mean, it feels like it takes years off your life.
It really does. But the staging has been dismantled, the local juries have gone home, and the field is finally firmly locked for Vienna this May.
Yeah, it's the one week of the year where the dust actually settles. We finally have the complete picture, which means the frantic speculation turns into concrete strategy. We can finally look at the actual chessboard.
Right. And today, our mission is to look way beyond the surface-level glitter and, the pyrotechnics to understand the very real, often hidden narratives driving this year's absolute frontrunners. And to do that, we have pulled together a massive stack of sources for you. We are looking at official voting breakdowns from various national broadcasters, meticulously translated lyrics spanning multiple languages, and real-time betting odds. The holy trinity of Eurovision data.
Exactly. We're also pulling from artist biographies, an official strategy press release from the Greek broadcaster ERT, and a phenomenal, incredibly detailed critique from the YouTube creator ESC Gabe.
Which is an essential mix of materials. Because if you just look at a performance in isolation, you miss the machinery operating in the background.
Yeah.
To truly grasp what is happening this year and why certain songs are resonating so intensely, you have to look at the intersection of fan hype, shifting musical trends, and the subliminal messaging within the tracks themselves.
Right. And we're going to focus the majority of our time today on the massive, undeniable hype currently surrounding Greece's entry. On paper, it is a chaotic, multilingual track infused with 8-bit chiptune elements that features a guy in orange furry boots screaming about sashimi tuna and submarines.
It is wild.
It is, but, and this is the entire point of our deep dive today, it actually hides a devastatingly relatable social critique right beneath its hyperpop surface. Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start by looking at the current landscape of the competition, because the bookmakers are painting a very specific picture of the race to Vienna.
The betting odds are always this fascinating cocktail of historical data, hard streaming numbers, and sheer public momentum. They aren't infallible, but they show us where the gravitational pull of the fandom is currently centered.
Exactly. And pulling up the current odds for the 2026 contest, we have a very clear leader. Finland is leading the pack with a massive 21% chance of winning.
Wow.
Yeah, 21%. Behind them, Denmark is sitting at 11% with Søren Torpegaard's For Vi Går Hjem. Then, right on their heels, Greece is at 10%.
Just a 1% difference there.
Right. And just to round out the top tier, Australia's Delta Goodrem is sitting in fourth at 9%, and the United Kingdom's entry from an act brilliantly named Look Mum No Computer is currently hovering in 12th place at 2%.
Look Mum No Computer. I just love that. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, Finland's current dominance in the odds represent a massive historic shift in their Eurovision identity. Finland hasn't historically dominated this contest, not by a long shot.
No, not at all.
They debuted way back in 1961, and they endured a legendary 44-year drought before their first victory with Lordi in 2006.
And even that 2006 win was famously treated as an anomaly at the time, like a heavy metal monster band shocking a pop contest. I mean, before Lordi, they had only ever received the maximum 12 points 3 times in their entire history.
Precisely. For decades, they were the perennial underdogs. And they often reacted to that by sending incredibly unconventional, almost antagonistic entries.
Right.
In 2015, they sent the punk band, let me get this right, Pretty Kurkin Nimi Pivet, which still holds the record for the shortest song in Eurovision history at exactly 1 minute and 27 seconds.
1 minute and 27 seconds.
It's almost anti-competitive. But this year, they are arriving with something incredibly polished, but maintaining that distinct, intense Finnish edge.
Yeah, the entry is by Linda Lampenius, who you might know as the classical violinist Linda Brava, teaming up with Pete Parkkonen. The song is called Liikenhaitun, which translates to flamethrower. And they didn't just win the Finnish national final, the UMK, they completely dismantled the competition.
The voting breakdown from February 28th is staggering. They won with a total of 570 points. But the metric we need to focus on is the split. They received 78 points from the jury and an overwhelming 492 points from the public televote.
I want to push back on that for a second, though. Doesn't a split like that 492 to 78 actually expose a massive vulnerability?
How do you mean?
Well, if the international juries in Vienna react the same way the Finnish domestic juries did, Finland might not get the critical mass of industry support needed to win the whole thing, regardless of how much the public loves it.
That is a completely valid concern. And history is littered with massive public televote winners who are anchored to the bottom of the scoreboard by the juries. However, a domestic public score of 492 points indicates something far more potent than just a catchy song. It indicates a cultural nerve has been struck. When a margin is that wide, it usually means the public is reacting to the lyrical narrative on a visceral level, essentially overriding whatever technical reservations the jury might have had.
So let's look at that narrative. What exactly is a song called Flamethrower doing to strike that nerve? Looking at the translated lyrics from our sources, this is definitely not a breezy Scandinavian pop track. It's a gritty, suffocating look at a highly toxic, inescapable relationship.
It operates on a brilliant thematic contrast. The music itself is driving, industrial, and heavy. It physically sounds like heat and combustion.
Yeah.
But the core dynamic being described is one of intense physical attraction to someone who is emotionally absolute zero.
The lyrics set this incredibly vivid cinematic scene right away. It would be wiser to leave here. How could I freeze the feelings? You are a flamethrower. And then it moves into this crowded club environment. On the same night, smoke in the air, I searched for you among the crowd. You talk to others, to your friends. You're like, you don't even know me.
Notice the language of isolation there. The narrator is surrounded by people, choking on the figurative smoke of this attraction, while the subject is completely indifferent. The track continuously plays with this dichotomy.
It's brutal.
It is. The narrator sings, "Every time we're skin to skin, I get third-degree burns from you." It's an addiction to the damage.
And it builds to this really desperate, almost religious climax in the pre-chorus. They sing, "It's a little strange that you don't look me in the eyes. When last night you couldn't take your hands off me, even though I get scolding from you, it feels so good. Oh, dear Lord, can I have one more baptism when I sin again?"
Reframing this toxic cycle as a baptism into sin is incredibly mature songwriting. It elevates the song from a standard breakup anthem into an exploration of self-destruction. And psychologically, that resonates. The public tends to vote for authenticity, even if that authenticity is dark and damaged. Finland is offering the voters a very raw, earnest look at toxic relationships, and the betting markets are reacting to that gravity.
Finland is offering the dark, suffocating reality of toxicity. But right behind them in the odds, Greece is offering a completely different kind of toxicity one, wrapped in neon orange fur and aggressive hyperpop irony.
A total 180.
To understand how Greece became the third favorite to win the entire contest, we actually have to look closely at the Greek national final itself, because it serves as this perfect, airtight microcosm of everything happening in the broader pop music industry right now.
This Sing for Greece 2026 finals were fascinating. They were held at the Piraeus 260 venue in Athens, hosted by Georgos Kapotidis, Betty Majira, and Katerina Vrana.
Yeah, huge production.
Massive. Highly produced broadcast on ERT1 featuring 14 finalists. But the true story of this national final isn't just about the winner. It's about what the Greek public actively rejected. The non-winning acts provide a masterclass in modern industry pitfalls.
Let's run through the acts that stumbled, pulling heavily from the analysis in our sources. Let's start with the fourth place finisher, Evangelia, with her track Perea.
Right.
Now, Evangelia has a gorgeous, captivating lower register, and visually, she is a consummate professional on camera, but the composition of the song itself suffered from a fatal structural flaw that is plaguing the industry right now.
It suffered from acute TikTok modification.
Right. What does a song structurally built for an algorithm actually sound like in a live arena?
It sounds disjointed. As the critique notes, the song felt like it was produced by a massive committee whose sole objective was to engineer a 20-second viral audio clip.
Exactly.
Every single time the song reached the pre-chorus, it intentionally slammed the brakes. The instrumentation dropped out, the momentum completely died, and it started building up from zero again.
And I'll play devil's advocate here. Isn't that just modern pop? If a 20-second clip of that pre-chorus goes viral on social media and generates 50 million streams, hasn't the songwriter done their job? Why is that considered a flaw?
In the context of a streaming platform, you could argue it's a success. But in the context of live television, it's disastrous. A live performance requires linear emotional momentum.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You are asking an audience to invest 3 minutes of their undivided attention. When a song constantly stops and starts just to create an isolated soundbite, it breaks the spell, it feels deeply contrived. The audience can subconsciously sense the algorithmic scaffolding holding the song together, and it repels them.
It feels like content, not art. Which brings us to the third place finisher, Maro, with her song Hanami. This was a fascinating entry. It's a pure, unapologetic cyberpunk synth-pop track dripping with Y2K nostalgia.
Which is where the irony lies, because according to her biography, Marl was born in 2001.
She is heavily referencing VHS cassettes, polyphonic ringtones, and a cultural aesthetic she never actually experienced. But the aesthetic itself is incredibly potent. The analysis pointed out a really specific parallel that I loved. Her entire performance vibe felt like it was pulled directly from the universe of Mirror's Edge.
It's an astute visual comparison. The staging, the wardrobe, the synth-heavy, dystopian yet bright aesthetic. It heavily mirrors the protagonist from that game, right down to the age demographic. It triggers a very specific manufactured nostalgia.
But again, let me challenge that. Does it matter that she wasn't alive in the 1990s? Artists have always pulled from past decades. Why does this feel different, or why didn't it translate into a win?
Pulling from the past is entirely normal. But there is a phenomenon happening right now where the nostalgia is purely aesthetic, completely divorced from the cultural context of the era. It's the visual language of the late 90s and early 2000s fed through a modern, hyper-polished filter. It looks cool, but it can feel hollow. It's cosplay rather than lived experience. The Greek voters liked it enough to give it third place, but it lacked the raw authenticity needed to win.
And speaking of lacking authenticity, let's talk about the runner-up. Good job, Nikki, with Dark Side of the Moon. On paper, this should have been the runaway winner. The studio version of this electro-pop track was immaculate. It was heavily produced, radio-friendly, guaranteed to dominate Greek airwaves. But Eurovision is, first and foremost, a live vocal competition.
And the live performance fell apart. The track demanded a significant vocal leap. During the verses, his lower register was strong, but the chorus required him to jump into a soaring falsetto.
Yeah.
And in a live environment, without the safety net of studio processing, he fundamentally failed to hit those notes. It was jarring.
There was an attempt to blame technical issues. He noticeably pulled one of his in-ear monitors out early in the performance, which is the universal sign for a singer struggling with their audio mix.
Classic move.
But the analysis points out that the falsetto was equally poor in both the semifinal and the grand final. You can't blame the in-ear mix twice for the exact same vocal failure. And this technical failure was amplified by a massive, looming controversy surrounding his actual presence in the competition.
The nepotism factor. Nicolini is a third-generation musician. Both his father and grandfather are highly influential, famous figures in the Greek music industry.
The moment you have a well-connected artist placing second with a flawed vocal performance, the public narrative instantly turns against the juries. It raises the immediate question of meritocracy versus industry connections. The public televoters notoriously hate feeling like the industry is forcing a connected artist down their throats.
Exactly. When you look at these three entries, the algorithmic TikTok track, the hollow aesthetic nostalgia, and the vocally flawed industry plant, you see the exact frustrations audiences have with modern pop music. And just to put the cherry on top, the Greek final also featured an entry by an artist named Steffi called Europa, which scored alarmingly high on AI detection tools when analyzing its lyrics and composition structure.
So the Greek public is sitting there on a Saturday night. They are being offered algorithms, nepotism, manufactured nostalgia, and literal artificial intelligence. They are craving something real. They are craving chaos, personality, and genuine artistry.
Which perfectly sets the stage for the artist who completely swept the voting, dominating both the domestic and international juries and pulling in almost 60,000 public votes.
Enter Akylas. Here's where it gets really interesting, because Akylas Mytilonaios is the exact antithesis of the Greek music industry machinery. He did not come out of a pristine studio or a famous family.
His background is entirely unconventional. Born in 1999 in Saris, a city in northern Greece, he showed an early interest in the arts, attending a local music school and taking theater classes. But he didn't pursue the traditional conservatory route. He didn't even finish his secondary education.
He dropped out, moved to Thessaloniki, and went to culinary school. He spent years working in restaurant kitchens before transitioning to what is arguably the most brutal training ground a performer can endure. He spent 2 years working as a singer on cruise ships for Aida Cruises.
We really need to pause and look at what cruise ship performing does to an artist. It is entirely different from performing in a venue where fans have paid to see you.
Completely different.
On a cruise ship, you are performing for transient international audiences who might not speak your language, who are distracted by buffets and casinos, and who owe you absolutely no attention.
You are background noise until you force them to watch you.
Exactly. You have to learn how to instantly command a room, how to project sheer charisma, and how to adapt your set to wildly diverse crowds. It strips away any preciousness an artist might have. You learn bulletproof stagecraft. The official ERT press release notes this era gave him a multicultural contemporary sound with a Greek identity. It built his armor.
And when he finally settled in Athens, he still didn't use industry connections. He built his audience entirely on his own terms. In 2021, he went viral on TikTok, but not with overproduced algorithmic tracks. He went viral simply posting videos of himself doing raw ukulele covers in his room.
Just undeniable talent and a camera. That organic virality led to his debut single, Finokrasso, in 2021, and eventually a spot on the 8th season of The Voice of Greece in 2022, competing on Panos Mouzaraki's team.
He is also openly queer, completely self-made, and wears his gritty background on his sleeve. You combine all of that, and you have an artist who radiates an unmanufactured authenticity. When he steps onto the stage next to a third-generation industry legacy act, the audience can instantly feel the difference. He has lived a life outside the studio walls.
And he brought every ounce of that lived experience, that cruise ship charisma, and that theatrical training into his winning performance.
Let's vividly describe what the Greek public actually saw when Ferto, which translates to bring it, began. If Finland was dark, suffocating smoke, Ferto is a sensory overload of neon and caffeine.
Perfect description.
Akylas takes the stage wearing an extravagant hat with literal ears protruding from it. He is wearing dark sunglasses, massive bright orange furry boots, a giant orange heart-shaped necklace, and a jacket and shorts completely covered in orange spots.
Visually, it borders on the absurd. It demands your attention through sheer maximalism. But the genius of the entry is that the musical composition perfectly mirrors that visual chaos. It is a hyperpop, manic track that refuses to settle into a predictable groove.
The instrumental track takes these wild, jarring left turns. The analysis from our sources focuses specifically on the second pre-chorus. Out of nowhere, the modern pop production drops out, and the song shifts into a retro 8-bit chiptune sequence. It sounds like a Game Boy glitching out.
I want to focus on that chiptune element because it's not just a quirky production choice. Chiptune music inherently evokes a sense of digital freneticism.
Yeah.
By injecting that harsh, compressed 8-bit sound into a modern hyperpop track, the producers are simulating the exact feeling of sensory overload. It mimics the feeling of doom scrolling through a chaotic social media feed where advertisements, memes, and news are all aggressively competing for your dopamine.
It's sonic anxiety wrapped in a dance beat, and the lyrics amplify this tenfold. The song is essentially one long, unhinged list of materialistic demands delivered at breakneck speed across 4 different languages: Greek, English, French, and Spanish. It's an auditory barrage of consumerism.
He opens the track with this aggressive, almost terrifying ambition. In Spanish, he sings, Mi ambición es fuego, nunca fracaso, no hay límite, todo lo arraso. My ambition is fire, I never fail, I have no limits, I am winning everything. Then he immediately switches to French. Je veux le sommet, pas juste un pas. I want the top, not just a step.
And then the list of demands begins. He demands a crown, a throne, and a checkbook so he can write checks to everyone around him. The beat drops into this manic rhythm, and he just starts listing luxury items in English and Greek. Real estate, Ferto Berenska Shimituna, Ferto gold watch, designer glasses, leather coat, Ferto and escargot, Ferto rally cars, a yacht with stars.
It scales up so rapidly it becomes comical. He isn't just asking for wealth, he is asking for the absurd totems of extreme wealth.
It gets even bigger in the second verse. Diamond rings, Cuban links, submarines, jet machines. And then he reaches this megalomaniacal peak where he literally demands the entire universe. He sings he wants everything in and out of the planet. If I don't have it yet, bring it.
If you take it purely at face value, it is the ultimate glorification of modern consumerist culture. It's an artist dripping in faux orange fur, demanding submarines and escargot. It is designed to be highly infectious, deeply memeable, and incredibly arrogant.
And this is the massive but that makes this song a masterpiece. Halfway through this Sugar Rush performance, the song executes one of the most brilliant tonal whiplashes I've ever seen in a contest setting.
The manic energy completely evaporates. The hyperpop beat drops out. The chaotic stage lighting fades into a stark, isolating black.
And the guy in the orange furry boots who was just screaming about sashimi tuna and yachts is suddenly standing in a spotlight singing a raw, stripped-down ballad directly to his mother. Listen to the lyrics of this bridge. Look, Mom, of all the things we were deprived of in the past, I feel like I'll do it, I'll provide, so we never lack anything again.
What's fascinating here is how this single bridge acts as a skeleton key for the entire song. The analysis from the deep dive critique frames Akylas as a modern iteration of the Icarus myth. This song isn't glorifying wealth, it is a tragic, desperate commentary on the psychological damage caused by the modern rat race.
Let's really pull that apart. Akylas is presenting us with a character who is fundamentally broken by early deprivation. The key lyric isn't the list of luxury items, it's his admission of why he wants them. I'm buying to fill the gaps.
Exactly. He is openly admitting that the yachts and the designer glasses are just spackle. He is trying to fill the emotional void of a childhood defined by lack. But society tells us that the void can be filled if we just consume enough. We are constantly sold this illusion that extreme wealth is the only cure for insecurity.
The character in the song realizes the futility of it even as he's demanding it. Before the bridge, he admits that the things he wants are not tangible. You can't hold the validation he's actually seeking.
The tragedy of the character is that he knows the game is rigged, but he plays it anyway because he wants to protect his mother. I'll buy you a lot of things too. Houses, cars, and summer homes. He believes that by accumulating physical objects, he can insulate his family from the pain of their past.
Have you ever bought something you didn't need just to feel a temporary rush? That's the trap Akylas is singing about, but the bridge ends with this devastatingly cynical line. He promises his mother all these things and then sighs, "Of course, that is if I win, whatever, you get it, so..." And instantly, the manic, chiptune beat violently slams back in with him screaming, "Bring it to me, bring it to me, bring it."
That whatever you get it is the sound of a man resigning himself to the treadmill. He knows building wings out of credit cards, debt, and consumerism is going to result in the wax melting. He knows he is going to crash. But the temporary high, the sugar rush of accumulation, is too intoxicating to stop.
It is a Trojan horse. He has disguised a searing anti-capitalist critique of modern economic despair inside a 3-minute multilingual Europop banger. It tricks the audience into dancing aggressively to a song about their own soul-crushing reality.
And that is why the Greek public gave it almost 60,000 votes. They saw through the orange fur and recognized their own reality. The economic anxieties of the modern world are universal. The desire to simply make the people you love comfortable, even if you have to participate in a toxic rat race to do it, is universally understood.
It's incredibly profound art. But, as we know, profound art alone does not win Eurovision. You need an incredibly savvy, highly calculated strategic machine operating behind the artist to translate artistic merit into continental votes. And based on the official ERT press release, Greece is currently running a masterclass in Eurovision strategy.
They have assembled what is essentially a dream team. The track itself was co-written by Akylas alongside Orpheus Nonis, Tom Papapanis, and Teo Posboris. Teo actually competed for Greece back in 2014, so he understands the specific pressures and requirements of a 3-minute Eurovision allocation.
But the true heavyweight on this team, the man who ensures the visual chaos translates perfectly to a television screen, is their stage director, Fotis Evangelinos.
Fotis Evangelinos is a titan in this industry. When you look at his historical footprint in the contest, he is the architect of some of the most memorable visual moments of the last 2 decades. He directed Helena Paprizou's My Number One in 2005, which secured Greece's only victory.
Right. He also directed Dima Bilan's win for Russia in 2008, Sergei Lazarev's massive televote win in 2016, and Marina Sadi's highly acclaimed single-take staging for Greece in 2024.
His hallmark is utilizing the camera not just as a recording device, but as an active participant in the performance.
Yeah.
He understands how to frame chaos so it feels intentional rather than messy. Putting Ferto in his hands guarantees that the manic energy of the track will be visually legible to voters across 40 different countries.
So they have the staging lockdown, but ERT is also running an aggressive regional diplomatic campaign. The press release details a very specific trip Akylas took immediately after winning the Greek final. He didn't stay in Athens to celebrate. On February 28th, he was flown directly to Serbia.
He appeared as a special international guest at Pesma za Euroviziju 2026, which is Serbia's national final, broadcast live on their public network, RTS.
He performed Ferto live for the Serbian television audience, did the morning show circuit, and gave a massive interview on K1 television. Why Serbia? Why spend those resources immediately?
Because the Balkan voting bloc is historically crucial, but often fragmented. If a country can unify the Balkan televote, it provides a massive foundational baseline of points. By introducing Akylas to the Serbian public early, they are securing regional familiarity.
But the defining moment of that trip wasn't the performance, it was a meeting. Akylas met with Zeljko Joksimovic.
Which is the equivalent of receiving a papal blessing in the Balkans.
Yeah.
Zeljko Joksimovic is a transcendent figure in regional music and a multi-time Eurovision legend.
Joksimovic publicly endorsed the song. He stated he loves Ferto. He gave Akylas a symbolic gift on camera, and he jokingly dubbed him Akyla Fertovic, giving him a localized, affectionate nickname.
That isn't just a fun photo op. That is high-level cultural signaling. When Joksimovic embraces an artist, the regional press amplifies it, and the public follows. It's a brilliant move to solidify the regional vote before the rehearsals in Vienna even begin. And the press release also casually mentions that a snippet of his performance was simultaneously broadcast in Germany during their national final on ARD. They're planting seeds in the crucial Western European markets as well.
So they have the artistic depth, the legendary staging director, and the diplomatic PR strategy. But there is one final structural piece of the puzzle that explains why Ferto is such a lethal threat to win the entire contest, and it stems from a brand new rule change implemented by the European Broadcasting Union.
This is where the mechanics of the contest directly intersect with the music.
So what does this all mean? How does a bureaucratic rule change by the EBU actually benefit a song about sashimi tuna?
The EBU recently mandated a demographic shift in how the professional juries are constructed. Going forward, at least 2 jury members per country must be under the age of 25.
Historically, the juries are made up of older music industry professionals, producers, vocal coaches, veteran radio DJs. And historically, those juries tend to reward safety. They vote for technically flawless ballads, pristine Swedish pop, and traditional instrumentation. They often actively punish songs that are chaotic, avant-garde, or overly reliant on modern digital trends.
Precisely. The older juries often view hyperpop or meme-heavy tracks as novelty acts rather than serious musical entries. But by forcing younger Gen Z industry professionals into the jury rooms, the EBU is trying to align the contest's voting metrics with actual modern consumption habits.
And Akylas is perfectly engineered to exploit this exact demographic split. He bridges the gap between the two factions of the jury.
On one side, you have the wild, TikTok-native, chiptune production, the absurd wardrobe, and the hyperpop aesthetic. That appeals directly to the younger jurors who understand the irony and the digital anxiety embedded in the track.
But on the other side, he doesn't alienate the traditionalists. Because right in the middle of the song, the beat drops out and he delivers that raw, exposed vocal ballad to his mother. During that bridge, he proves unequivocally that he has immense technical vocal proficiency. He proves he can actually sing.
That bridge is his insurance policy. It signals to the older vocal coaches on the jury that beneath the orange fur, there is a fundamentally sound musician.
Looking at the math presented in the critique, winning Eurovision usually requires breaking the 500-point threshold. With this new jury rule, the song is insulated from a total jury tank. If the vocal showcase secures him around 180 points from the professional juries.
And his undeniable charisma, the universal anti-capitalist narrative, and focus of Angelino's staging secure him a massive 320 to 340 points from the public televote.
Greece suddenly vaults over that magic 500-point mark. It is a terrifyingly perfect storm of narrative resonance and structural advantage.
It is rare to see an entry effectively operate on so many different levels simultaneously. Many artists try to manufacture a viral moment, like we saw with the failures in the Greek national final. But Akylas has managed to capture something entirely organic. He has crafted a piece of performance art that is at once deeply ridiculous and profoundly serious.
It really highlights the sheer depth of this competition. We started this deep dive looking at Finland's Liikenheiten, a song that uses heavy, driving instrumentation to explore the suffocating, burning reality of toxic interpersonal relationships. And then we contrasted it with Greece's Ferto, a track that uses the bouncy, hyperactive sounds of modern pop to disguise a devastating critique of global consumerism and generational trauma.
It proves that Eurovision is not and has never been just a vapid pop concert. It is an annual mirror reflecting the cultural anxieties, the economic frustrations, and the evolving musical languages of an entire continent.
We really hope this journey through the sources has given you a completely new lens through which to view the upcoming contest in Vienna. The next time you hear a hyper-produced, bizarre pop song on your feed, don't just dismiss it. Look closer at the lyrics, look at the artist's history, and look at the structure. It might be a Trojan horse holding up a mirror to the exact society we are all participating in.
This raises an important question, though, and it's a paradox I think we should leave you with as we wrap up today's analysis.
Let's hear it.
We have spent a significant amount of time deconstructing how Akylas' Ferto is fundamentally an anti-consumerist narrative. He is portraying an Icarus figure, warning us that the desperate pursuit of infinite wealth, luxury goods, and global fame is a hollow trap. He explicitly states that buying these things will never actually fill the gaps of his past.
Right. The core message is that the rat race is destructive.
But consider the reality of his current trajectory. If the strategy works, and Akylas wins the Eurovision Song Contest in Vienna, the prize he receives will be the exact global fame and massive fortune he is currently critiquing. He will secure lucrative international recording contracts, arena tours, and immense wealth. He will literally be given the crown and the throne he ironically demands in the opening verse. Oh, wow. So the question becomes, does winning the system inherently corrupt the message of the art? Can you authentically critique the soul-crushing nature of the modern rat race while you are actively standing on top of the winner's podium, bathed in confetti, accepting the ultimate prize? Does achieving the wealth he sings about validate the critique, or does it turn him into the exact monster he is warning us about?
That is an incredible paradox to end on. Does the victory ruin the art, or is it the ultimate punchline to the joke he's playing on the industry? Something for you to deeply mull over as we count down the weeks to the grand final in May. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the media you consume, keep looking beneath the surface, and we will see you next time.